Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. I hope everyone is having a really good day and an exceptional Easter from the time this video is being made. I hope everyone is hanging out with their families, being happy and the likes. But today, I'll be uploading a video, it's been a while, on a death battle prediction from Ant-Man versus Atom. Now, I don't know how the episode will go. I'm just giving off my opinions from what I know of both characters. So don't go back onto this video and calling me wrong, because it's just me giving my thoughts on the matchup and who I think wins based on what I know from the characters. But today, it's going to be a special day because I have three special people here with me today. The first one that proposed the idea and made the recording, Captain Forrest. And then the two other friends are Korin and CDH. All their channels will be provided in the description below. Please check them out. Give them a subscription. They make quality content that you'll love. And yes, let's get on with the prediction.
Captain Forrest here, back with a death battle prediction. It's been a while. I brought some friends over. They're going to give their predictions. But before they do, I'm going to get these folks to introduce themselves. So, of course, we got my good friend, Korin.
What is up, everyone? Korin O'Keefe, back yet again. Thanks for having me back on the channel, Captain.
Anytime. And then we got, of course, I got Shinigami jumping on the mic as well.
Hello there. I hope everyone is having a really good day, and thanks for having me over again, Forrest.
Anytime. And then lastly, I got my friend, CDH.
Hello, everybody. CDH is here again on Captain Forrest's channel this time.
Yes, let's go. So, pretty much, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to talk a little bit about, Atom. I don't know a huge lot about Atom. I'll talk a little bit about him. And then I'll pass over the mic to Korin. He can talk about Ant-Man as well. I'll chime in as well near the end. But then after that, CDH or Shinigami, they can all also chop it up and give their thoughts on who they think's going to win in the death battle. And then, we'll just give our overall thoughts. And then, we'll see if our predictions come true or not. So, basically, for Atom, there's just not too much I know about him. There's only basic stuff. So we know about the microverse itself in DC, that was able to affect the God Sphere. There's some stuff about that. So easily at least, the microverse is a powerful verse. It's easily at least God Sphere tier. Now I've gone over, the DC scaling on my channel many times. There are a lot of ranges you can take the Sphere of the Gods. There's easily some outerversal arguments very easily, just due to how conceptual the realm is. There's some high outer arguments. There's some boundless arguments too. And if you want to use character stats and profiles, there is the extraversal scaling. So that can also be taken up a notch as well. So you can also get the Atom to those levels too. And just based on his power and how his bout works and how he's able to shrink him down, shrink his body down to these sizes, and he can reach these abstract levels of size, which is pretty impressive. Now, there's not too much I know in terms of what he can do. I just know basic stuff. So he can easily shrink himself down. He can make himself super dense, so he can attack you with very strong attacks. Now there are some low ball statements, says he can punch with the force of a white dwarf star. So there's things like that. And obviously he can also manipulate you, make you shrink down, or he can increase your size and just change your molecules and change your atoms themselves. And his bout basically helps him regulate and shrink his own size. And he can also do this to help him evade attacks. He can hide in areas. He can shrink himself down to avoid, and sneak around and get around his opponents. And as mentioned, he can use this offensively. So if he's got opponents that are way too big for him to handle, he can literally just shrink them down to size if they have no resistance to that. So that's going to be an issue. And like I said before, if he needs to get offensive, if he needs to beat the crap out of an opponent, he can make himself super dense, and he'll be able to literally literally beat the brakes out of his opponents by doing this, which is pretty impressive. And yes, he's pretty durable. He has good durability feats. He's taken hits from like Prometheus's energy sword. He's taken hits from Lobo. He was also unharmed by Kronos' bomb exploding on him. And then he has some pretty decent durability feats going on his way. So yeah, overall, Atom, I wish I knew more about him, but at least with that, we know where we can gauge in terms of his AP. Speed, again, just due to how DC works, I definitely think he can reach these, levels of immeasurable speed and irrelevant speed. That's on the table too. So there's things like that, and just due to the type of characters he fights as well. And he's able to literally shrink himself down to size in reaction to these attacks. He can also avoid attacks from other characters on these levels. So there's that at least. So those are just some ranges I wanted to kind of just pitch out there and give you something to kind of toss around your head and, make an own internal decision for yourself. So yeah, that's pretty much it for like the Atom, God Sphere level, creation level scaling. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and pass on the mic to Korin, and he's going to give you guys a little bit of an insight on Ant-Man, and then we'll just chop it up from there, and then give everyone can give their thoughts and etc. etc.
So, when it comes to Ant-Man, right off the bat, even looking at his more without, shrinking or growing bigger, you know what I mean? Like, just standard average size, he's pretty much comparable to, your everyday street tiers in Marvel, which in itself is pretty freaking impressive when you break it down, as these street tiers in themselves have, of course, relativistic speed feats, FTL plus arguments in terms of speed. If you really want to go lower, really can't get any lower than the Mach 8,000 range, Mach 9,000 range, you know what I mean? So it's like, right off the bat, decent ranges for even just like, your standard Hank, Ant-Man, just, walking around. And in terms of AP, well, these street tiers can range anywhere, even on the lowest of low ends, wall plus, small freaking building, large building, there's multi-city block calcs floating around all over the place. Town level, I've even seen small city that some of these guys can scale to, downscale from, yada yada. So right off the bat, not bad for just his, average self, so to speak, you could say. Now he can also grow, obviously, smaller or bigger. Now, when I say bigger, right, you folks might be thinking, for those of you who don't know, you're like, wait, he's Ant-Man though, right? Well, what do you mean? What do you mean bigger? Well, folks, there's this thing called Giant Man, right? He can grow bigger. He can grow like the size of buildings, stuff like that. He can grow, he can mess with the Hulk, mess with kind of Herald tier level characters here and there. Not too bad, because even while suppressed, a lot of these Heralds can reach galactic levels, universal levels, or even higher, actually. There's, especially depending on the context of the fight, you can actually, if there's like more exertion being put out, stuff like that. I mean, I've said this many a times, Thor has multi-plus feats. I've showcased this many times. He has high hyper feats, outer versal, heck, even way higher than that, like some of the ranges Forrest even said. Now, with that being said, obviously these characters can range in speed from really high into MFTO plus, infinite and immeasurable. And if you really want to go there, irrelevant for some of them. Now, I'm not grandstanding that Hank, or Scott Lang especially, inherently scales to that. But again, it's something to consider because Marvel in itself and DC, of course, they have a lot to work with. And it's kind of hard to say something is an outlier because of all the material, right? You got to go through a lot of that and actually give, good reasoning, point out contradictions and stuff. So there's a lot to work with, right? There's not, it is a funny thing to hear when someone says something's an outlier these days without putting a second thought into it. But you know how it is. But he can also get even bigger. We've actually seen this dude grow on more than one occasion to the size of Overspace, right? Now, this is bare minimum, ignoring a lot of stuff, a lot of context, cosmology, contextual consistency. This is an outerversal realm easily, dude. Very easily. This is where, abstracts hang out. The first time he did it, he grew up there, took Absorberman up there, and Absorberman couldn't even comprehend this place, right? And this is the same Absorberman who could absorb, Thor's power before. He absorbed Odin's. He absorbed the Centuries on a couple of occasions, although Century did overload him. And one of them, bare minimum, from memory, if memory serves, Century did actually overwhelm him. But that's beside the point. Point is, Hank Pym, as Giant Man, grew the size. He grew so big that he went into a realm that abstracts hang out in, known as Overspace, these conceptual beings, these very fundamental abstractions. He's done it twice at least. And obviously you can get it a lot higher, such as there's actually videos on this on Captain Force channel, our good buddy Corimbus, right? On his channel, he has stuff on why the dimension and manifestation is 1S, right? He has videos on Type 4 stuff. And just all around, it's very easy to get this cosmological structure just far beyond dimensionality to such a degree. You really might have to start stacking uncountable conceptual transcendences just to catch up when you really go into the higher degrees of the realm. Now, I'm not saying obviously growing to the size of not the size of the realm, but growing big enough to go into the realm. That obviously you don't inherently scale to the entire realm, but the fact that he's growing just past reality to such a degree, because obviously eternity himself contains several realms, just outer, versal, high outer, even higher, just stacked up on top of each other. And it's absolutely insane when you really break it down under a critical lens. You know what I mean? So, with that being said, there's plenty to work with. Again, comics, right? Now, he's also an extraordinary genius, literally extraordinary genius, right? Ultron creator, right? He created Shinigami's, fantasy, one of his fantasies, Ultron. He loves Ultron. He'll talk about that in a minute. But Hank Pym is an absolute freaking genius, one of the top tiers in Marvel Comics. Absolutely. Scott Lang, on the other hand, not so much. So, with that being said, he can shrink really small too. Obviously, he can go into the microverse, which in itself has really good arguments. It's very stacked. It's layered. Pretty much every realm in Marvel, a lot of them are layered, have layered existences, layered planes of existence. And it's kind of similar to the one in DC, but obviously, cosmologies can vary. I know Death Battle, I've seen in their blogs, they think that Marvel and DC are completely even. They apparently have the God Sphere equal to Oblivion, which, I mean, that's it is what it is on their part. I'm not going to get into it here, but yeah. So that's them. With that being said, though, I'm going to hand the mic over to Shinigami and see what he brings to the table and what he has to really say in this situation.
All right. Thank you, Korin. Thank you, Forrest, for like the infos of both characters. And yes, people, both Ant-Man and Adam are really, really freaking strong. This fight might be pretty close depending on what you take for both characters, especially since both of them can just shrink down to however much they need to just to continue the fight and what it may bring to the table as well in terms of animation. However, for my personal reasons, based on what I know of both characters, I think Ant-Man takes the slight edge in terms of the victory. There's like a few reasons as to why. For one, there's a Giant Man. I've seen multiple arguments of people claiming that Adam can just like do some Duraneg and just like get into Hank's insides and just grow him and explode him from the inside out or something. But you have to consider that Hank has like on a few occasions grown as far high as like the place where abstracts exists at. You know, like this is going to be a realm that not even Absorbing Man could comprehend, and he could take in Thor's hammer. So it's like, can Adam even do the exact same thing to Hank before Hank like just takes away a universe that Adam is in and just GG's him from there? Like that would be pretty insane if that's how Hank would win. But let's just say that they want to keep it small. Like small things matter as well. Don't worry, people. Small things also matter. Let's say they keep the fight there. If that's the case, there's another advantage for Hank, which is the ants. It'll just be like an overwhelming amount of ants just like going in there, and they're gonna overwhelm Adam. Adam is gonna try to punch them, just gonna punch them left and right, but the ants are just gonna go in, and they're gonna bind him off and GG him from there. And that gives Ant-Man specifically a big numbers advantage, which would be questionable if Adam has fought something of that caliber. Sure, he can like just increase his density to that of a dwarf star and do some AoE here and there, but I really don't think that'll be enough to just stop the swarm of ants that are just going to be coming at him, you know? And another slight advantage that Hank has is like he also has some proficiency at degrees on judo, and he's also way smarter than Adam, most likely, considering he has done things like build an infinite-sized built an infinite-sized mansion in the plane of existence that Eternity lives at, and built Ultron, one of the strongest villains in Marvel Comics, specifically the second strongest behind Thanos, and above Kang the Conqueror, an AI that can just keep on growing how much he feels like it. Like, yes, dude, Ultron's insane. Hank built him, and Ultron is based around Hank in terms of intelligence as well. So whilst the matchup may seem pretty close, and it is pretty close, both fighters will have a tough fight ahead of them, very certain. I do think that with superior numbers, the size advantage that would give that Ant-Man has shown, growing as high as places where the abstracts live at, and also actual skill feats and intelligence advantage, I think Hank would win. And I'm going to hand it over to CDH, and he's going to give his thoughts on the matchup. You go.
Okay, thanks for Nagami for talking about this. So this matchup is like super duper odd, like to like obscure actors like Marvel and DC that like not many people know, right? And we have, Hank Pym and Ant-Man. I don't think they're using Scott Lang because who really cares about Scott Lang, if I'm being honest. But for one, sorry about that. But no, Ray Polymer, those are like the guys who like inhabit the mantle that everybody knows. As for who I think will win, it at first it may seem close, as Shin was saying. They have like a bunch of arguments to go for, right? Both are really smart scientists. Although you can argue that Hank Pym is smarter because there was a scan that like argued that one of the gods in Marvel, I forgot who it was, Eternity or something, said, "Oh, Hank Pym, you're like one of the smartest humans on Earth or something." That is a good feat because we all know like there are a bunch of smart people in Marvel. Got like Tony Stark, Reed Richards, those guys. They're very intelligent, and like to be put up with those guys is very good. Also, and Pym also has his particles, which Adam probably won't have any way of getting out of. If I'm being honest, because the Pym particles like very converse, and basically Hank's own thing he controls, and like could like just trap him. Adam wouldn't be able to get out, if I'm being honest. And we also like his giant man. Oh, and as Sen was saying, oh well, maybe what's his face? A Pamela could do that, and it's like, well, like grow inside and like go in his insides and grow out. Well, I think Pym could do the same thing, but unlike Adam, he could just grow really big or really small. Well, he would have those types of advantages. And Adam, I also feel like that Pym just has better things going for him. His Pym particles, his Iron Man, Ant-Man forms. There's other things that he has, just far more than Ray Polymer's Adam. So overall, I do think Hank Pym would win more often. Has so many things like counters. Adam. I do. That's gonna be it for me. Captain Boris or Korin, if they think.
Okay, I'll give my thoughts and then I'll pass over it to Korin and stuff. He can give his if he would like to, and anyone else can give their final thoughts as well afterwards if they have any additional things to add. Now, for me personally, it does depend on what ranges you use. However, just like in terms of like versatility and what Ant-Man can do more often not in this situation, I'm leaning a little bit more so of Ant-Man on this one. I definitely think Ant-Man has a lot more to work with, especially with his Pym particles and his ants and what he can do versatility wise. Ultimately, the fight is going to come down to who is the most prominent force and like how far they can take their powers. How far they can shrink down or shrink to, depending on how they want to take the the battle, especially if it comes into the more fundamental grounds. I definitely think Ant-Man can reach higher into those tiers. Could be argued that Atom has a potential chance to be stronger than him, depending on how you take the DC scaling, but I'm going off what I have currently, and more often not, me personally, I just think Ant-Man takes victory more often not, just due to what he can do in this battle. But yes, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Korin, and he can give his final thoughts and then see how it goes.
Appreciate it, my captain. So, for my final thoughts, I would have to say that overall, in my opinion, if it's Hank Pym, right, versus, Ray at their peaks, right, if they're putting them at their best, they're taking things into consideration. I am leaning more towards the man of ants, Ant-Man, Hank Pym. Now, that being said, if there's, good stuff said, Ray wins, if it's pretty decent reasoning, both characters get justice, hey, it is what it is. I was wrong. And I'll accept that. With that being said, I am, again, leaning more towards Mr. Pym, Hank, the guy who created Ultron, you know what I mean? That guy. So, again, if you look at it under a critical lens, you really start to see things that you normally wouldn't see at first glance as a casual reader. And when I say casual reader, that's not anything bad, right? It is what it is. You enjoy it how you enjoy it. I just mean you look a little deeper into the scaling aspect of it, little cosmological placements and all that goodness, then you really start to see things shine a little more on both parts. Because DC and Marvel are stacked, man. They're up there. They're potentially the two most powerful verses in fiction. Potentially. They're definitely in the top 10. Possibly top 5. I definitely have them up there somewhere for sure. So yeah, a lot to work with. Definitely gonna have to lean more towards Mr. Pym though, Hanky, more often than not. Mr. Hanky Hank. So with that being said, anyone else want to give any more final thoughts?
Nope, not really.
What about you, Mr. Sage, Mr. Beast of Sage, the Sage of Beast?
Like, I don't really care if that were wrong, because I know people in the comments are gonna be like, "Oh, you guys are wrong." It's like, to be fair, like, they're like the most obscure characters, right? Unless you read like a lot of comments, sure, might know Hank Pym more, like MCU, where he was more like a mentor, Scott Lang, or like in like the Earth's Mightiest Heroes collection, like which Hank Pym was like one of the founding members of the Avengers, actually, And it's like, these are like very obscure characters from both these verses. Like, you might know him, but you won't know them as, say, like Superman, your good old Thor, your Hulk, your Spider-Man's, Captains, your Batman's, Wonder Woman's, and all that. So I do think that if we're wrong, we're wrong. It's really not gonna matter because we really don't know like the best of these guys. It's just us giving our thoughts, who will win from what we know from them. That's gonna be my other piece.
Right. And one more thing on my end. Dean Winchester solos both, but I'll let the captain take it from here.
Yeah, very true. Very true. That's how it be. Goku solos as well. Solos, Ant-Man and freaking Atom. But yeah, ultimately, see how Death Battle performs. We'll see what their interpretation of the fight is and what they're going to lean more so and use in this situation. I can't wait. Honestly, you can make arguments for both sides. It can be close depending on the right scaling and what you want to include and if you go into the finer details. But ultimately, this is necessary. There's not really any right or wrong answers per se. I personally lean more so Ant-Man on this one. But yeah, those are my final thoughts at least. Anyone else has anything else to say? If not, I'll go close up.
Peace.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Goodbye, everyone.